Hello everyone, the Flying Scotsman here, and welcome to this video. Now in this video we're going to be working with the Dell XPS 8300. Now when I believe I last filmed this video, I did so installing an SSD and a 2TB hard drive. I had Windows 10 on the SSD and Windows 7 on the 2TB hard drive. Well, now I've decided to go a slightly different way about proceedings. See, instead of Windows 7, because this machine uses MBR booting rather than UEFI, I've decided to dual boot it with Linux. Which distro, you might ask? Well, as it's not long now until it's released, I thought we'd go with Debian Buster. See, it should be quite easy to turn the testing build into the stable build just by going into the sources .list of the apt installer updater program and changing it from testing to stable once Debian Buster has been released. So let's go and install it. Here I have an easy to boot Linux USB drive. I'm just gonna plug into this machine. There we go. Now let's power it up. Okay, now we want to scroll down to USB key. Okay, so we want to go to Linux menu. Now I have a few Linux distros on this key. Got Helium 4, I think that's Jings, I forget what that one is, but it's a replacement for Crunchbang, I believe. Firmware 9.5.0, that's Debian Stretch. Firmware Buster RC1, Kubuntu 18.04 and 18.10, and Open Media Vault. So I'm just going to go and select Buster. So for those who are new to the Linux world or are not that experienced in Linux, Debian is what distros like Ubuntu, Linux Mint, and I think Elementary OS are based upon. So Ubuntu, I think, being the most popular one of those. So if you've used Ubuntu, then certainly the use of things like apt should be quite familiar. So I'm wanting to do an advanced install because there's certain options I want to be able to set while installing Debian. So I'm going to scroll down to advanced install, and I like to use a graphics install because text install uses this tiny, ridiculously tiny print. So graphical expert install, I do believe. It's dark theme installer menu. Nice. Install with speech synthesis. Graphical expert install. Really hope this is a 64-bit version. Excellent. So, colours have changed in the installer a bit from Stretch and even Jesse, which used pink. I kind of like this though, because it does kind of feel a bit old school. It kind of reminds me of early versions of Red Hat installing. So when I choose the language, English, United Kingdom, now Debian, obviously, like most Linux distros, is something that constantly is evolving. So yeah, it'd be nice to think that Scotland would become independent in the lifetime of this distro. Or at least that we'd have had our NDREF 2 by then, not that Westminster would allow it. Location, the selected location will be used to set your time zone, and also, for example, to help select the system locale. Normally this should be the country where you live. Multiple locations defined for the language you have selected. So what I want to do now is go down to NGB. I'm going to select these two. I want to select NGB UTF-8, if I remember rightly. Let's configure the keyboard. This keyboard is British English. Detect and mount the CD-ROM. That really is a misnomer at this point because I'm on a flash drive. Load installer components from the CD. Choose mirror. Yep, I want that. MBR Deb master boot record for IBM PC compatible computers. Multipath support. Network block device modules. Yeah, I want that. NTFS file system support. Yep, I have NTFS volumes. Manually partition a hard drive. SquashFS modules, UDF modules. Right, got everything I think I need, and some things I don't think I need, but... Okay, so we're going to load the components from the CD. This is, at this point, not installing Debian, it's just literally loading the installer, the different bits of the installer that we're going to need. And now you'll see our menu's got quite a bit bigger. Detect network hardware. Configure the network. Auto configure. I think we can on here. Please enter the maximum time. We can take the default. Configuring the network with DHCP. Enter the host name. Dell XPS -Linux, and then the domain name. It's a running gag. Choose a mirror of the Debian archive. There's one that I usually use. Now, any one of these should be fine. Alright, is it actually going to work? Set up users and passwords. Enable shadow passwords. Allow login as root. No. Not at the moment, but we are going to do that later. It's because I want to be able to set my own account up with the root privileges. Full name for the new user. J. I'll just type my password in. And now I want to configure the clock. I said clock. Okay, just, yeah. I'm going to set the clock using NTP. Europe, London. Okay, detecting the disks. Now we're going to partition the drive. Okay, now what I'm going to do is manually do this. Now the SSD, we're going to pretend like it's living in a... We're going to pretend like it isn't living in a dome, and we will leave well enough alone. Right. So, free space. So, what I want to do is... free space. I am going to... well, first of all, I'm going to create a new partition, and I want to make it, let's make it, I'm going to make it 10 gigs. Going to put that at the end. What I'm going to do is use it as swap area. Okay, so we have a swap partition. Now we want to create the system partition. 160 gigs, nice. Make this a primary partition. ext4, and we'll make that bootable. Typical usage standard, reserve blocks, label, yeah. ext4, done setting up the partition. There we go. And then finish partitioning, write the changes to disk. Partition table of the following drives are changed, SDB. So we've got an ext4 and a swap. Now, you know, some of the more seasoned Linux users among you will be, you know, shouting at the screen going, oh, you did this wrong, or you have separate var, temp, lib, whatever partitions, blah, blah, blah. But this is, you know, kind of a nice, simple way of doing it, but still having at least some control. Right, so let's go and install the base system. So this, again, depending upon the speed of your internet connection and the drive, actually, I never did point out at the beginning that this is actually the network installer, the network firmware non-free installer, actually. It's a bit trickier to get to on the Debian website, but you can get to it. You just have to go more in the bowels of the download section. And this install will ask us later on if we want to be able to use non-free software, which is quite funny because LML3 Sensory 350A and I always joke whenever we're either one of us is installing Debian. Well, you'll see. You will see what happens. But this, going for the network, I mean, Debian changes so much that you'd be as well just going for a network installer and just letting it pull all the files down from the internet to begin with. Because if not, then you'll end up with, you know, you'll end up burning like 3 or 4 DVDs, however many DVDs it can. It's quite silly the number of DVDs that it can take to you know, hold a full install of Debian. You know, by the time you've burned them, some of the packages on them are completely out of date, and you have to go updating them anyway. So you may as well just use the net install. unless there's a very good reason not to. Like, for example, you're spinning up a computer in the Highlands or something. I know that it seems a bit odd me saying use the net installer, but at the end of the day, it is still actually installing it to your local computer, rather than it being something on the cloud. Cool. Now, we've got the a choice of which image we want to use, and we're just going to use Linux image AMD64. I've always been told to do that. I'm not entirely sure why that is, although I guess that allows the image to change rather than it just being stuck on just that particular one or something. I don't know. Want a generic install, include all the drivers. That is quite useful because if I was to take this hard drive out and then put it into another computer, it would continue to work. It's what I like about Linux. When I upgraded my server, actually, well, when I changed from using a Dell Optiplex to using my actual server, it was quite good because I was able to just plop the hard drives in and it was fine. And there is a server project, upgrade project, actually coming up this year, later on this year, and I will be doing just that again. Right, cool. And base system is installed very quickly. I want to now configure the package manager. Okay. Use it again. It's the same step we went through for selecting a mirror for the installer, and I'm just going to use the same mirror that I used for that. Oh, here we go. Some non-free software has been made to work with Debian. Though the software is not at all a part of Debian, standard Debian tools can be used to install it. The software has varying licenses which may prevent you from using, modifying or sharing it. Please choose whether you want to have it available anyway. Use free non-software? Do I want to use my computer? Yes. Yeah, I know what I just said is...
Connected to Wi-Fi.
Oh, will you shut up? I know what I've just said. And enable source repositories in apps, why not? I know what I've just said is negative in the freedom dimension, but you know, there's a lot of things that, you know, I do use on my computer. I go online and, you know, there's a lot of proprietary software that most regular computers will actually need. Okay, what I'm going to do is select these. I'm not sure if at this moment, because Buster is still in testing, whether backports will work. I remember when Stretch was in testing, it didn't. So that is something I might have to add manually. Oh, it did work. Oh, that's good. Okay, so now I want to select and install the software. Upgrading software. What's there to upgrade? Tell you, running Debian on a Wi-Fi on a wired internet connection, especially when now that I've got my fiber to the noodle, is oh, here we go. So applying updates on a frequent basis is an important part of keeping the system secure. I'm going to select no automatic updates. I'm quite happy to just every so often sudo apt-get update. I don't want to participate in the package survey. Now here is where, well, okay, if you're coming from Ubuntu, you'll know there's different versions, and those versions they differ based upon the desktop environment they use. So Ubuntu uses GNOME, used to use Unity, but we don't talk about that. Kubuntu uses KDE. Xubuntu or Xubuntu uses XFCE, and Lubuntu uses LXD, and now LXQT, yada yada, so on and so forth. But and then you've got Ubuntu Mate, which uses Mate, blah 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 blah. On Debian, you select which desktop environment you want to choose when you install it. Kind of more like how things were traditionally done in the Linux days. So I have a couple of I have a few options. I could use GNOME, which is quite a common one, but to be honest, I don't like it as much as I used to do. XSpace, really quite useful if you've got a lower end machine. KDE Plasma, that's the one that we're going to be using. Cinnamon, that's what Linux Mint uses. Very much like Windows. Mate, that's how GNOME, that's like GNOME 2, that's how it used to be. So if you pine for the old GNOME 2 days, mid to late 2000s, that's the interface for you. That's one that I've used for quite a long time. I very much like it. LXD and LXQT, LXQT uses, the Qt, instead of GTK, I believe. So I'm going to select KDE Plasma. I want an SSH server. Don't need a web server. I'm not sure if I need a print server. Alright, so that's going to go ahead and install. Well, let's talk a bit about desktop environments. I have, obviously, because I use magnification and stuff like that, I have had issues traditionally with every single desktop environment available to Debian. And that is no joke of a lie. They would either, a lot of them had trouble scaling the mouse pointer, so it wouldn't, the mouse pointer would stay small. It wouldn't scale with the magnification, so you'd end up with this tiny ass mouse pointer against all these huge kind of window controls that have been zoomed in. Some desktop environments didn't actually let you grow the mouse pointer large enough unless you're in a certain type of app, or it was all a bit messy. But I think it was last year, early on in Buster's testing phase, I did try KDE, and I was actually really quite pleased with it, both in Kubuntu and in Debian itself. KDE was actually, I think, one of the worst for accessibility, because they made it look pretty at the expense of actually being able to bloody well see it. Back in the dark days of KDE 4. And that's a shame, because I really traditionally liked KDE. Like, I know it's blooming glossy, and I think it was a bit formidable function where accessibility was concerned. Yes, you had KMag, but that's just a magnifier window. I hate those. Prefer to have a full screen zoom in magnifier, which is something that you actually get now in the newer KDE Plasma. So yeah, I'm really quite pleased with how KDE has turned out. For the longest time, as some of you will know, I was using Ubuntu Mate. And, I quite like that. I quite liked using that. But, well, let's just see how well Debian Buster actually works. So, I think the best thing I can do is just let this install. And here we go. Debian is now a way to install the desktop environment and the software. So again, I will leave this to do what it's got to do, and I will come back when it's time to proceed with the final bits of the installation. So that's Debian basically installed. Now there are a couple of things that I do have to do before this installation is actually fully complete. First off, we need to install a bootloader. Now you can choose to install a grub bootloader, or if you believe that the year is still 1996, you could install Lilo. We're going to install grub. It shouldn't take too long. Looking for other operating systems. Install grub bootloader to the master boot record. Yep. Which drive would I like to install it to? Let's install it to the... Let's install it to the SSD. That's the one that's bootable. Force grub installation to the EFI removable media path. Alright. Right. So I've installed a bootloader, and now all I need to do now is just finish the installation, and then it's just literally going to tie up any loose ends. System clocks are generally set to Coordinated Universal Time, UTC. The operating system uses your time zone to convert system time into local time. This is recommended unless you also use another operating system that expects a clock to be set to local time. Is the system clock set to UTC? No, it's not. I use Windows. Windows doesn't know shit about anything. Installation is complete. There we go. Now hopefully, if this has all worked, I should be looking at a bootloader, which I am. So before we do anything, let's just bob into Windows 10. Just marvel at how quick the SSD is. I'm sorry, I keep knocking my phone. It's just out of my line of vision. Right, good. That still goes. I'm just going to shut that down. This looks like it's just booted into a terminal, but hopefully, one would hope that it's going to actually boot into a graphical user environment. At least one would hope, anyway. Right, so this I guess looks a bit more promising. I've just installed the AMD video drivers, and I've also done an update and installed Linux firmware non-free, and well, we'll see. Yep, we see a mouse pointer. There we go. Now we've got it. So let's see if I can log on. And so now we're signing in. KDE does take a while to start, so I get the feeling that in future an SSD is going to be needed. And here we are. We are in. Nice. So KDE, being the very sleek UI we've come to expect. Settings. System settings. Obviously the bouncy icons. Workspace theme. Cursor theme. Size. Massive. Good. That's what I like. And I'm gonna. There we go. We should test it with a rather appropriate video.
I am using Windows on my computer because Bill Gates is a smarty man. Why don't you use Linux? Why should I use Linux? Oh no, my Windows is crashed. Linux is much more reliable than crappy Windows. Let's go buy some Linux. Is anybody here? Hello, my name is Clippy Bing. We need Linux. Alrighty, good. Thanks, now I'm less of a fake guy. Now, back to business. Oh no, my computer is melted. Praise the Lord for Linux. Wait a minute. How come I don't feel weak and condescending like all the other Linux users?
Sorry, had to censor.
Linux truly is a superior operating system.
So that's why you should go buy Linux, because it set a superior operating system and it's better than Windows. Ha ha ha. If you want to pay me money like that fagot, Iliad, to make your dumb Linux ads, please email me. I want monies, Jeff K. Blast from the early 2000s, yeah. So that works. Steam's been available on Linux for a while, but now thanks to Proton we're going to be able to get more and more Windows games being able to be played on Linux. There's quite a few already. I think Euro Truck Simulator you can play on it. That'll be quite interesting. I'll have to definitely give that a shot. I have to plug a controller in actually. I mean, I reckon if I could get Grand Theft Auto 5 to play on here, and I could get stuff like, you know, something like Photoshop. I'm aware GIMP exists, and now I'm aware that Krita exists, but something else that had a nice magnetic lasso tool like Photoshop does. You know, I mean, I've kind of there's so many resources on how to use Photoshop online, and there's just so much now that I can do in Adobe Photoshop. You know, and I do use Microsoft Office. Guilty as charged, you can, but still. Outlook. And yes, I do use Exchange. Even, you know, it's just stuff that I use. You know, if I could find ways to make things like all of that work, then maybe I would consider switching to Linux, because to be honest, I'm getting sick and tired of Windows. I really am. Just the way that it is and the way that Microsoft are about it, you know, it's, you know, they seem to have lost the memo that said the customer is always right. Now, I know that in IT circles that is pretty questionable, but just things in Windows that should not be happening. They've taken the control away from admins. Things like automatic updates. Updates will break your computer, but you'll pretty much be forced to have them anyway. Things like Windows basically spying on you. Why is that allowed to happen? Pretty certain that it's GDPR non-compliant. Pretty certain that it's HIPAA non-compliant. In fact, one of my friends who's an MSP will tell you it's GDPR non-compliant. Well, folks, I have a few apps installed, and I'm installing a couple more. Not sure how well Crash Bandicoot will work on Linux, but it would be good to see. So let's try playing Euro Truck Simulator version 1. This game will launch Steam Play using a platform compatibility tool. I'm sure that Euro Truck Simulator 2 will play on Linux, but version 1 doesn't natively. So let's see what happens. Preparing to launch Euro Truck Simulator. Proton has, we'll say, varied success rates, as you might expect for a compatibility layer. So there you have it. That's Debian. I've got a lot of things. I've got certain things installed. I've got only Office as well. Sansui 358 tends to work quite lyrical about that software. Kind of like it from looking at it. It's got document, spreadsheet and presentation software. And if we open the document software, loading document, we see that it looks very suspiciously like a modern version of Microsoft Office. But there you have it. So I think with that, I think I will end this video here. And I'd like to thank you all for watching. And please join me for my next video. Cheery bye.